There's been no shortage of Spider-Man cartoons over the years. From 1967 to the present day, we've gotten our fair share of the web-slinger on Saturday mornings. You guys know I've ranked them all before, but today I like to go a little bit deeper into probably the most interesting Spider-Man cartoon to ever air. One that has been repeatedly ignored because of its obvious downsides, but still one with lots of promise and potential. In fact, one with a phenomenal story, promising characters, and a mature gritty tone. I am, of course, talking about the first and only 3D CGI Spider-Man cartoon ever brace our eyes, Spider-Man, the new animated series. It's new, guys. A lot of people actually grew up with this iteration. It was sandwiched right between Spider-Man Unlimited and Spectacular. All three shows bring something unique to the table, but none of them look as strange as this one does in retrospect. Even Unlimited's weird retro style seems rather normal compared to the CG mess. It's hard not to talk about. I mean, there's no getting around it. This show has aged poorly in terms of the visual. Almost gave me a SpongeBob and Tehran flashback for a second there. I swear, that movie's like Vietnam in my brain. CGI was still in its burgeoning age at this time, and even full feature films hadn't mastered the intricacies yet. I mean, in 2003, the closest comparison would be Finding Nemo, and that film had millions of dollars dedicated to it. For average shows like this with lower budgets, it would be at least half a decade before it would even look tolerable. I mean, only 9 years after this we got TMNT 2012. Look how great that show looked. Spider-Man the new animated series looks cheap. There are often no textures present in characters or the mise-en-scène, and the movements look robotic and unnatural at times. Look, this was the first experiment regarding this whole concept, and without shows like this, there may not have been a framework for later series to carry the mantle. To be fair, there are aspects of the visuals I find really nice. Spidey's suit, for instance, as I touched on my Spidey suits ranked video, is amazing in the style. There's a nice reflective sheen to it that looks really nice, especially during the swinging scenes. Because of how easy lighting is in CG animation, the different colors and lighting elements in the show are also awesome. There are tons of blues, greens, and reds present in many shots that add depth and make it look more lively. Sometimes I also just like to play this game where I see what each little prop object looks like in CGI. The show's storyline consists of only 13 episodes, mostly episodic, aside from the two-parter arc we get towards the end. Each episode takes us through a separate villain, while we balance it with Peter's relationships and all that. You know, like every other Spidey story. The short season ends with a two-parter called Mind Games, delving into an Eastern European duo that mind controls Peter into thinking that he told MJ his secret identity, and that she's killed by Kraven the Hunter. It actually ends with Peter hurting the people he loves so badly that he gives up on Spider-Man altogether and throws his suit into the river, walking away. This is not the ending I was hoping for this show because it was clearly a cliffhanger in need of revival, but as it is, this 20-year-old show is left on a pretty bittersweet note. The show also clearly foreshadows Harry turning to Gobby, as every time you see Spidey there's a line about how he's a murderer and all that, and I can see how everything in the show is set up for a pretty sick second season. Maybe a movie wouldn't hurt to wrap things up 2 decades later. I wouldn't mind making that if the opportunity came someday. It's even crazier when you find out that they actually had good ratings, but MTV just didn't want to make it anymore. I swear, if I had a nickel for every Spidey show that ended prematurely, I can make J. Jonah Jameson a rich man. Batman never got treated like this in any of their shows, man. Sucks to see. At least we got some pretty funny bloopers out of this show.
This'll look cool on DVD.
At least there are some good villains in the show though, right? We get a bunch of big players from the start, including the super badass looking Electro, this old lady assassin ninja who has a magic sword, this other lady assassin ninja with a cool background, and even Kingpin gets an awesome portrayal here. Although sometimes the villains will be hyped up to be really epic, but then are completely nerfed in their battles with Spidey, like that Shikata chick. More like Shitaka, am I right? The main cast of characters is also really well done here, especially Peter, Harry, and MJ. Harry is a blonde rich kid here, and his banter with Peter is really in tune with his comic book self. I love watching Spidey shows where they aren't all 13-year-olds, for Christ's sake. The back-to-back banter between them feels more like college-age dudes. It actually comes off as natural sounding and not cringy. The show didn't care about the censors at all, and was probably the most adult Spidey show to ever come out.
What the hell are you talking about?
I've heard her midterm is a real bitch.
I'm not going back to the gulag.
Don't worry, I've got other plans.
What do you want? Didn't you get your ass kicked enough last time?
Goodbye, Kraven.
MJ is also really nice here, and isn't too flanderized in any particular aspect. Not to mention Peter himself, the perfect blend of nerdy, cool, and heroic. This show was supposed to be a continuation of the first Raimi film, but I always saw it more like the Garfield Spider-Man archetype. The three of them were great together, and this was probably the best realistic trifecta of the three of them in an animated Spidey show that I've seen anyway.
There's a party tonight at the Sigmas. Want to come?
How about if I come late?
He's not coming.
He is so not coming.
Hello? I said I'm coming.
The voice actors also bring a lot to the table, especially Neil Patrick Harris as the Webhead himself. Damn, I never knew he played Spidey at some point. Makes me feel bad for all the memes I've made clowning on him over the years. Sweet November, even Child's Play. Still beats this, right? Love you, Neil. Lisa Loeb also does a great job as Mary Jane, and Ian Ziering does alright on Harry. It's definitely believable that these characters were continuations of Toby, James, and Kirsten from the 2002 film. We get a J. Jonah Jameson, but he's just an empty husk of a Jameson without J.K. Simmons.
This godforsaken town is overrun with animals.
Are you serious?
We also barely see Peter's house here. It's all mostly in school. There's also no Aunt May, sadly. But I mean, how much would we really be missing with the granny version? What's she gonna do anyway? Get kidnapped by Kingpin? Oh, that's mean, I'm sorry. Aunt May and Sandman single-handedly carried most of Spider-Man 3.
You forgive yourself.
This show also stands out for its darker themes and more mature tone. It seems I always say that about shows from the early 2000s, particularly 2003, TMNT, Teen Titans, later Ben 10. I feel like that's why I love that era of cartoons. I always seem to prefer it to the 90s and even to the 2010s when I was a kid. Coming off the back of Batman the Animated Series and other mature plots, gave birth to the gritty feel of all these early 2000s shows. It gave the writers the liberty to bring the world of comic books to TV, rather than watering down and sugarcoating the source material. This show definitely had its fair share of dark moments, and touched on plenty of mature themes that added more depth to characters.
No! Mary Jane.
This may have made it stand out among other Spidey shows, as diverse as they were in terms of tone, which is why it's been largely overlooked in recent years. Everyone always swoons over Spectacular, and for good reason, but in my opinion that show is completely overrated when you compare it to how underrated this show is. Even in animation, while this show looks like tin toy on crack cocaine, at least it takes risks and liberties that shows like Spectacular don't. This show utilizes color, has vibrant fight scenes, and saturated and well-lit atmospheres. Spectacular doesn't have any of those most of the time. And look, I'm not here to crap on that show. You guys know where I stand on that one. I've ranked it number 1 on plenty of lists. When a show like this gets overlooked and ignored due to technological shortcomings, that just really pisses me off. If you really want to compare it to Spectacular though, you can look no further than the fact that this show was also cut short, unceremoniously, just as the next iteration was. MTV decided that, even though the ratings were high compared to other shows in the same time slot, the series did not fit in with his other programming, for reasons we just discussed. Director Brandon Vietti stated that had the series gone on, he would have used the villains Mysterio, Vulture, and more of Kraven. Honestly sad to see, just like with other iterations we touched on before. At least he got his chance to shine in those short 13 episodes, and prove that this kind of story and this kind of art style is at least possible and worth the shot. You always love to see a crew get their hands dirty and prove a concept, even if it's cut short in the end. I've taken a look at countless shows on this channel, and none have stood out as uniquely as this show, and not just for its visual peculiarity. Something about this series feels special, and I hope to talk more about it in the future.
Where were you when we had an energy crisis?
Not too much off the sides, Doc-Ock.
Spandex? Ha! You might want to rethink that.
Sitting around watching TV, wishing you had superhuman powers of some kind, dreaming of fighting bad guys.
This is so not spandex!
Be sure to let me know your thoughts on Spider-Man the new animated series in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support me. Remember, I got plenty more Spider-Man animation videos on the channel. Those will be linked in the end card and in the description, along with all my socials that you should definitely be following. With all that said, I'll see you beautiful apes and jellyfish in the next one.